Okay, I'd like to call to order the Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, November 14th. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brady?
Present.
Mrs. Papianka? Here. Mr. Cavanero?
Here.
Ms. Holman here. Mr. Kisco?
Here.
Mr. Marola? Here. Mr. Nargi?
Present.
Mr. Rivero?
Here.
Mr. Tebow? Mr. Trog?
Here.
Mrs. Batchelder? Here. Mrs. DeMonico? Here. Mr. Jocelyn?
Here.
Mrs. Placco? Here. Mayor Bingham? Austin Kelson? Kevin Finn? And a new member, Rachel Kelly. Here.
Okay. Public participation. The Board of Education invites members of the community to speak on topics to be addressed in the agenda or on other topics of interest. Individuals wishing to make comments are requested to fill out the speaker sign-up sheet located on the front table, including your name, address, which must be stated also at the beginning of your comment. The board will not allow comments regarding specific staff members or personal grievances. Courtesy is expected in this limited public forum. The participating time will be limited to 3 minutes per person and 10 minutes overall to guarantee an efficient operation of the entire meeting. Deborah, do we have anyone signed on our sheet?
No, we do not.
No, we do not. Okay. I'd like to move on to approval of the agenda.
I'd like to amend the agenda to
Okay.
include under action items E, committee recommendations regarding the bylaws.
Second by Chris. Was it?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimous. Okay, approval of meeting minutes for the Board of Education meeting on October 17th. Oh, I'm sorry. Addition, okay. Approval of the amended agenda. Motions from Chris, second from Ellen. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Good. All right. Approval of minutes. Board of Education meeting October 17th, 2012. Fiona, second. Ellen, discussion. Yes.
I noticed in the minutes, there's a lot of votes that aren't getting the names of who's voting, that it wasn't identifiable on the tape.
Okay.
So is there something that we need to do differently when voting so that the votes are properly identified in the minutes?
It
I'll
would
repeat
help.
each one before we do it.
Just what you did now by saying, Chris, Fiona, if I hear it, that's perfect.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And I think Mr. Marola and I are getting confused with some of the things that we're doing. Excuse me. Others are confusing Mr. Marola and me for each other. So on 6C, where it was Mr. Marola had a question regarding children without a district school, I believe that was me.
I have one.
Okay.
On 6G Board of Education goals, I actually seconded Mr. Cavanero's motion and stated that some of us had actually already submitted those goals.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes as noted? Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention, Mr. Brady. speaker in the back is not working, the audience can't hear us?
Speaker will be available at the next meeting. The sound was used for the broadcast right now. It hasn't been split.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, we'll have to speak up.
Try to speak louder.
All right, Board of Education special meeting on November 5th, 2012. Motion to approve the minutes. John, second. Fiona. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? None. Okay, informational sharing and discussion items. Student representatives, we have a new senior class president. Her name is Rachel Kelly. She's here tonight. You're all alone, so you have a big plate today.
Yeah. Well, hi, I'm Rachel Kelly. I'm the new senior class president. Unfortunately, Kevin and Austin were not able to make it tonight, so I have all the schools with me. The Southwest school staff will be donating a decorated tree to the Larks Festival of Trees at Valerie Manor. Touring for School held its annual book fair from October 31st to November 9th. It was very successful. Last evening, parents were invited to attend our PTO meeting for a presentation on the smartboard technology. Mandy Dwight, an educational consultant with Tech, demonstrated for parents and teachers how the smartboards can be used. The East School Harvest Hop was very successful. Unfortunately, due to Hurricane Sandy, they had to postpone their child's author, Patricia Polacco, but they will be rescheduling for January 9th. They are also acknowledging their 5th grader, Alyssa Archambault, for being the recipient of the Litchfield County Superintendent's Award. She was among many other winners in the Litchfield County District, and they are very excited. The middle school were able to watch country artist Matt Keenan perform, and he stressed the importance of not bullying. The tryouts for their winter sports are next week, and the 7th graders are going to the Connecticut Science Center, and the 6th graders are going to the Boston Science Museum. Here at the high school, the guidance department sponsored a college financial aid information session last Monday. There were 60 parents. 27 students participated in the Model UN at UConn stores last weekend, which was very successful. The Science Club is collecting donations for the victims of Hurricane Sandy this week. Semi-formal is this Saturday. The theme is Under the Sea. Students are invited to show their support by wearing sea-related and school-appropriate costumes all this week, and we will be handing out prizes. Parent-teacher conferences were held this afternoon, and they will be continuing till tomorrow, 6 to 8. And this Thanksgiving Day football game will be held at Torrington. It will be versus Watertown as usual at 10:15, and it's very encouraged that everyone come out and show their rate of pride. And that's it.
Thank you. I guess before we get too much further into our informational sharing, we are live tonight for the first time in coming up on 2 years, almost 2 years. I'd like to thank our students that came out to fill this in. Sorry for the technology deficiencies. We're sharing a soundboard that has limited capacity. I know we're working on that to try to help the crowd as well as the people at home. Informational sharing B, superintendent's report.
Just would like to report last night on the Student Recognition Award Program. It was held at the Cornucopia. We had 7 students from Torrington Public Schools recognized. From the high school, it was Enrica Bello. From the middle school, Mackenzie Giray. From East Elementary School, Alyssa Archambault. From Forbes, Caitlin Luba. From Southwest School, Angel Blauvelt. From Torringford Elementary School, Tatiana Kozlowski. And from Vogel Wetmore School, Cheyenne Harvey Stoltz. These students are recognized by both faculty, staff, and administration for their contribution to the their overall participation in the school, and so they are recognized by all superintendents of Litchfield County. It was a really beautiful affair. They come with their parents, great dinner, great speakers, and just really probably one of the best celebrations we have as a school district.
Thank you. As we have tried to make our agendas more specific, and this month has become THS month, curriculum for the new courses, Even Start, and Civic Life.
At the request of the board, we've provided course overviews for 2 of the courses that were approved at the October meeting. These are included in your board packet. This is the same format that we utilize for curriculum review and development during our summer projects. For our high school courses, we also include the school-wide expectations that are required by the New England School and College Accreditation Association. So listed here are the academic expectations, the learning goals, the list of topics and units that are covered, the list of assessments that students need to participate in, and major programs or resources that are utilized for the 2 classes. So included in your packet is the course overview and curriculum outline for the Even Start School-Age Parents course and for the Civic Life Project Citizenship and Documentary Production course that will be implemented next year. The Civic Life Project course will be held during the school day and will be taught by 2 current THS instructors. The Even Start School-Age Parents course is a course program that's offered at the end of the school day and is taught by a certified instructor who is paid through a grant that we received. So these are the 2 that are completed this time to be shared at your request.
Any discussion?
In reference to the Civic Life Project, this has a focus on government, local government. One of the things that I found out last year's election was that Middletown actually had a requirement for their students to volunteer at through a political campaign, whether it doesn't matter, left or right. It wasn't directed towards politics, but the students had to volunteer to some extent. I'm just wondering if there'd be a chance to incorporate something like that down the road. And this is obviously already done, but I thought it was inspiring to see so many high school students helping out in the political process.
I think we addressed some of those objectives in the American Citizenship course that we offered. This also offers another opportunity for this. I don't have a very detailed understanding of all of the ins and outs of this program, but it's my understanding that the students work with their advisors and with the outside advisors to determine what the focus or theme will be for their project annually. So that's a suggestion that they could incorporate in considering what project they choose to pursue for the year.
Okay, thanks.
Just had a process comment. The board approved last month, not unanimously, to approve these courses. But in the future, could we get these course overviews prior to voting on approving courses? To me, it seems backwards that they were looked at for approval last month and the coursework is coming this month. So I have this in the future. I'd like to see this first and then a vote on the courses.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a content question about the Civic Life Project. I'm actually really, do we have, in terms of course content, the American history, American society piece of it, that content piece of it, is that textbook driven or online learning driven, or?
It's driven, yes, not a specific textbook online, but it's also driven by working with professionals in whatever area they're researching. Like last year, when you saw the final component, they worked with the American Civil Liberties Union. They researched with the legislators about, maltreatment, bullying. So they really work with practicing professionals, research online.
And this course outline is also derived from a larger Civic Life Project curriculum that's available on the website that's referenced under the major resources on the last page. So that's the source of the content.
All right.
And their primary artifacts, such as our Constitution,
Okay,
Bill of
okay.
Rights.
Okay. I mean, I'm just concerned, and I'm sure you've done this, but I just want to put it out there and voice it on behalf of myself as a board member, that we're sure this is value-free, that whoever is doing the teaching, instructing, it's not party-driven in any way. It's not ideologically driven in any way. The people, and I know you shake your head like the people who are actually doing it are keeping this value free? We have,
Our teachers, because that's who teaches it.
or, okay, I thought there were also outside people.
They provide technical
Yes,
support.
like
Just technical support.
CPTV,
Okay. They're not, no outside people are involved in the actual content.
no, it's all student driven.
Yeah, just want to make sure that
In
nobody's.
fact, an
advocating for
example,
one position.
I don't know, I forwarded it to Mr. Traub, there was a YouTube piece because our students were outside both polling
Yeah.
places the day of elections and interviewing people as they came out.
And just a technical question on this, the editing with Adobe Premiere, we have that now? We have that in-house?
We had it last
Is
year,
that the system?
yes.
Yeah. What about After Effects? Do we know if we have that? Adobe After Effects?
Some of the equipment is provided
By
by
the Civic
the
Light
outside
Project.
consultants.
Okay. I mean, if we go forward with this, that's something that we really should be putting on in front of these kids too. I mean, it's a huge, huge piece of software that you can get absolutely. They market student-driven discounts for that kind of thing. And if anybody's going to be pursuing this kind of work, that is something that they have to learn. It's very learnable, and it's definitely what's what I want. It's very much career. It opens up career options for people who might want to do this desktop editing.
Oh, and that's-
Okay, and that's an industry standard piece of equipment that again is priced for students. We get discounts on. Yeah, it would be very, very useful for these
Do you want
kids.
to give me the name one more time?
Yes, called Adobe After Effects. Okay, it's an industry standard. Thank you.
I have one question for you. What's the number of students, what's the number of students involved in the Civic Light Project?
This year it's a larger group, Joe. Is Creedon, do you know?
I believe it's about 16 this year.
Yeah.
And
Is that right?
the cost of it?
$10,000 that comes from general enrichment.
1,000?
10.
10,000.
There's no teacher stipend for doing that?
No, it's during
It's just, okay.
That includes transportation, technical.
I mean, I think as you push this kind of thing forward, what you're going to find is kids are going to start to specialize. You'll find there's a different mentality. Kids who like to operate, or people who like to operate more in production driven versus people who are really, post-production driven and music driven. And I could see this, I could easily see this catching on and drawing a lot of kids into specializing in one project and a real quick learn curve for kids in this town. I absolutely guarantee you they have the skills, talent, and drive to master this kind of stuff, and it's huge. So, that's it.
All right. THS Advanced Placement Courses.
Also in your packet is another piece of information that was requested at the last meeting as a follow-up to information that was provided about advanced courses at Torrington High School. The information that's in the packet includes a period-by-period list of the AP and UConn ECE courses that are available to students. You notice that there are 17 different offerings. Overall, UConn has 50 offerings in 20 different disciplines, and the College Board offers 34 different AP exams. So for a school of this size, we offer a very representative number of courses available to our students. I know that there's been some concern about the inability of students to be able to schedule multiple AP courses or ECE courses because of scheduling conflicts. And this chart gives you an indication of the difficulty of fitting 17 different options into 7 periods. Where possible, there's consideration given to trying to schedule courses that students might take in combination over different periods, and also to avoid scheduling them during popular periods for orchestra and band that have large enrollments. But in most cases, you'll see that if a student is involved in, for example, a double period UConn American Studies class, then that precludes them from taking other courses that meet that same period. So this is the information that was, I'm just providing the information that was requested.
Anyone have any discussion?
like, I don't see any courses related to physics, accounting, business courses, just no interest or provide those?
AP Physics and AP Chemistry used to be offered on alternate years. We need to have an adequate number of students to be able to justify offering the course. We can't staff the course for 3 students, for example, who may be interested in taking it. The other thing is for our teachers. In order to teach an AP course, teachers are required to complete a week program of study that's generally held at one of the schools in the area over the summer that gives them the knowledge and preparation to be able to deliver the advanced placement curriculum and is certified by the College Board. The same thing is true of the UConn ECE courses, that in order to teach a UConn ECE course, the instructors have to be certified and have to meet the requirements that are established by the University of Connecticut. So there's several different parts of my answer to the question. One is having the teachers on board who have the necessary training and preparation to offer the course, having student interest in the course, and then having enough enrollment to justify running the course. So you see that, for example, we offer 2 sections of UConn United States history, which is also offered to prepare students for the advanced placement exam. And it's a popular enough course that it's offered 2 different periods during the day. And the same thing is true for Spanish 4, that there's adequate interest to offer it 2 periods during the day. But for courses that have lesser interest in enrollment or have teachers for which we may not have teachers certified, those courses did not run it this last year.
And that'll lead to a question I've had since we brought on online learning. Can these types of courses, say you have 3 students interested in physics, would we be able to provide that online?
There are online programs that offer advanced placement courses. Virtual High School is one content provider that's fairly well known for offering rigorous courses in preparation for the advanced placement exam. Our current online provider, Odysseyware, does not specialize in that kind of curriculum. They have review and overview courses, but they're not of adequate depth to really do a good job of preparing students to sit for the AP exam.
What would it cost, or how would we go about it if the board decided to want to do a few additional courses with virtual learning?
Virtual High School, we actually have a past precedent of students who have worked with our school counselors in order to schedule an AP course online. As a matter of fact, we had one with United States history last year that I'm aware of. And in those cases, the pricing is quite different. It's very often, it's a price for one student to take 1 semester of the course, and then there's a fee associated with that. So it's a little bit more of an expensive model than the system that we're currently hooked into for our students who are doing courses online for credit recovery and that purpose.
But would it be?
It's possible. It has been done.
I mean, it would be cost beneficial. Obviously, if you had 3 students who wanted to do physics that way, we have a physics teacher, I assume probably would be able to mentor the program. And if we were to do it online, what would be the dollar savings to do it that way, as opposed to have a physics teacher who would just do it in the traditional sense of having a class for 3 physics kids instead of doing it online? Would we ever have that type of breakout so we can present it to the board? If the board wants to discuss trying to expand online learning for, again, advanced students who want to take advanced courses and see how the breakout comes as far as numbers.
What we can do is, because we're trying to get children to register earlier this year than ever before, so we have all that information for budget preparation. So once we get a rough idea of how next year looks, we can take a look and see how it falls out and say, oh, well, we have 3 students who would like AP Physics. Can we assign a science teacher to that we're already employed, or do we do an independent study which costs about $600 per pupil to do that online, so it would cost us at least, $1,800 for those 3 students. Where a seat, not a seat, where is less. So we'll have to see, we can do it for you then, when we have some idea of where students fall for their selections for next year.
Before we go into a presentation, can we do a survey at the high school and find out if there are UConn or AP classes that we are not offering that kids would be interested in? And then that would lead into what Mr. Nargi's trying to do. I mean, if we find out that we have 10 interested in chemistry and we don't offer it, can we look into it? At least prior to getting into budget, we'd know that. And then we can weigh out the options of online versus training someone in-house. And if we could, I know scheduling is difficult, but if you look at the list, I mean, there's 1 UConn class, period 1, 5 UConn classes, period 2, 2 period 3, 3 period 4, none of them period 5, 1 period 6, and 2 period 7. I understand I see that there's 3 languages in period 2, but if we could just try to adequately spread that out a little easier. I know it's not easy, but that would just be it.
And just to point out that you did make note of the fact that those are different language offerings, so it meant those students wouldn't be involved in the same classes. And the last one listed, the UConn Individual and Family Development course, is a small group of students, generally who have completed a course sequence already in the Family and Consumer Sciences division of the school. So, I mean, some thought is given to trying to avoid the logical conflicts, but it's hard to tell if a student who wants to take AP Calculus is also taking Italian or French or Spanish. So this is not really, for a school of this size, this is an unusually large number of options, and the more options you have, the better it is for students, but also the more difficult it makes it to make the right decisions to suit everyone.
I think that they do a nice job with it. I've received a lot of complaints that people have a hard time because of overlapping periods, so I know you do the best you can, just as long as we look at it and we review it. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Is the board philosophically against considering asking parents to pay some sort of portion of an AP course?
They pay a portion of it currently. Do they pay for the test? Do they pay for the class?
Yeah.
I mean,
They pay for half of it. The board has a policy that covers 50% of the cost of the AP exam itself. Students don't have to take an AP course in order to take an AP exam.
Oh, I see.
However, and the UConn ECE courses, the families do pay a small fee to UConn in order to have their child registered as a UConn student, so credits can be awarded. And since it is a college level class, for college credit, the families also assume the cost of the materials as they would if they were taking the college class on their own outside of school.
Obviously, in terms of what Andrew was talking about, increasing those expenses, those like a la carte courses, the a la carte pricing, or the ADC, whatever for those. I mean, maybe if, again, clearly it's beneficial for the family, and if these things are usable, maybe, I know everybody's trying to do this calculation per credit cost in our heads on different things and apply to that. Maybe that's, if you're going to do a questionnaire, all I'm saying is, maybe ADCOM, would parents be willing to pay some fee, some portion of the fee for blah, blah, blah. Let's see what they say. If it's overwhelmingly yes, we would, then we go one direction. If it's not, it's not.
Yes.
I would also be interested in seeing what the recommendation process is for students to get into these classes, if we're doing it as a future item. And then the other big concern I have is that we're possibly not tracking the number of students that are actually interested in these courses, due to the fact that if a child was to go to guidance and wanted, just say, UConn American Studies and UConn Calculus, but they can only get calculus, are we tracking that student as a student that would like American Studies or only a calculus student at this point? It's been my understanding that it starts and ends there. So I would like to be sure that we have a full analysis of how many students qualify and are interested in these courses. Because it's a big, these kids get to take these credits with them when they go to most colleges are accepting them. So it's a huge savings for families
good start going into college with credits, so.
We do track it through the scheduling process. There is a report on unmet schedule requests, so we can get an idea of how many students requested a course, but we're not able to take it. And then very often those students are given the option of being assigned to another section. Sometimes if they can't get an AP course, they take an honors course. Sometimes they switch to another AP course if it's available. So there is a mechanism for that question or that query.
But we can't think that an AP course and an honors course are equivalent courses.
Although a student can take an AP exam after completing an honors course.
Right, but the workload is not by any means the same. And do we have enough students that aren't getting these to add another period, is my question. What do we do with that information? If we're tracking it, what do we do with it? Do we know that 25 kids didn't get into American Studies or calculus or whatever course we're looking at? I mean, we can track the information, but are we using the information to determine the need of what wasn't, not necessarily just looking at what was new? I mean, if we're gonna look at it further, personally, I don't feel an AP and an honors are the same level of course. So putting kids into honors, that should be an AP. I think it's a disservice if we don't have enough students to fill it. That's one thing, but if we're evaluating to see, it's possible that we do have some students to fill these other courses.
Just wondering, so if you can tell me how many of these are available to juniors versus everyone waiting, or a student waiting to his or her senior year? And are they being, I guess it dovetails off the honest question, are they being encouraged or made aware that you're not going to get all your options senior year? And I mean, are we making them aware of that? And is it, English language, junior year encouraged, literature, senior year? I'm just wondering if you could tell me which of these classes is available.
I think it depends on the normal course sequence. We tend to have juniors who are interested in taking the AP U.S. History, for example, because U.S. History is the program of studies that's normally available to juniors. The same thing is true for all of the languages, that if you have proceeded, if you successfully completed level 1 when you were in middle school, then level 2, level 3, level 4, it gives you indications of where you can plug into the courses that are offered here. As far as advisement on the English language versus the English literature, that conversation takes place between the student and the student's counselor. And after the registration process, there is an individual meeting between the student and the counselor to review their schedule choices. So I think that's the point at which those questions are addressed.
So juniors, our accelerated students have the opportunity in their junior year to take more than just 1 or 2 of these classes. I don't want this to represent just what's available to a senior, for example.
No, it's possible for them to enroll in those courses if they're ready for it.
Have there been any thought, I'm just trying to think outside the box in terms of the course offerings and whatnot, like if you had a student that was interested in like AP Economics, AP Comparative Government, AP US Government, even like AP Physics, like partnering with a private school, neighboring school district with like any type of video conferencing technology for a licensed instructor and that type of thing, that, I mean, I'm just thinking of, like nonprofit boards of directors video conference all the time, people Skype with one another, like being able to offer those courses that we may not have the instructors here for, but another school district could.
I've seen that model play out in a number of other districts where they've shared an instructor through a distance learning platform. The most problematic things around that tend to be the initial setup expense to make sure that you have the right smartboard technology and cameras and remote devices, that you have supervision in the room. But even more troublesome than that is syncing the schedules between the 2 participating schools to be sure that the students and the staff who are involved in the program are available at the same time. And very often, ways that districts have resolved that is to have it meet before the start of the regular school day or after the end of the regular school day. But distance learning has been eclipsed really a lot by the types of online programs that are available now that are 24/7 and that don't require the same amount of instructor involvement in helping the student to move through the curriculum. So that certainly is a possibility, but now it's competing with the type of programming that Mr. Nargi was talking about a little bit earlier.
Right, I was thinking, like, online learning may not be for all students.
Go ahead.
Just one more observation. Out of a total of 19 courses here, 3 of them, one is UConn Calculus, one is Biology, one is Chemistry. So out of 19, only 3 are in the hard science / math area. And I know they're extremely hard courses to get that type of proficiency. But as someone who, or as the board who would like to create a high standard, have a high-performing school district, it certainly would be nice to know that we're producing a larger and larger proportion of our high-end student population going into taking those types of courses and achieving that level of development so that they would be taking more and more of these courses. Is there something that, as a board, we can try to do to encourage at the younger, earlier grades that type of foundation so that our juniors and seniors would have a higher proportion of kids excelling in these 3 type of courses?
Well,
Because that's the money in the future.
Well, I'm not sure that there's specific board action, but the issue that you raised is being addressed by the fact that we're now implementing student success plans in grades 6 through 12. And one of the purposes of student success plans are to lay out 4-year programs of studies that would help students to be able to achieve their career objectives, whether it's to enter the workforce or to go to a 2 or 4-year college or even beyond that. So we have not only school counselors who are working with the students, but smaller advisory groups that are generally held in homeroom or in the SSR period at the middle school that give students an opportunity, a smaller group of students, 10 to 15 students, an opportunity to talk with an adult who is informed about their academic program, who could suggest, you really seem to be, according to your interest and career profile that's in our career cruising program, you really seem to be interested in this, so you really ought to push yourself and take chemistry, or really ought to push yourself and take 4 years of science rather than the minimum number. So that's the mechanism that we have in place to try to encourage students to take the most rigorous possible programming that's available. And the selections that are on here reflect those that are in place for the 2012-2013 year. And as I mentioned earlier, we may be offering AP Chemistry this year, but it may alternate with AP Physics on the opposite year, so that it is possible for students who have an interest in the STEM area and science, technology, math and engineering, to have that opportunity to take multiple rigorous courses in that area.
One of the things that Port School offered last summer is a whole robotics component during the summer school. So they had literacy, numeracy in the morning, but they worked with robotics and Legos programs in the afternoon, constructing. So yes, we have more of those kinds of learning experiences and units on a younger level. Would that help influence more math and science? Absolutely.
I just want to say, when we get to the next steps for small learning communities, that discussion was definitely on the table for the last couple of months, and I think we can address even more going forward. Next agenda items.
Okay. So to the next agenda item. Next steps for small learning communities at THX.
The information that's included in the board packet includes information that was presented publicly at the school improvement meeting that was held on November,
5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th.
okay, over the last two school improvement meetings, the regularly scheduled one in October, and then an additional meeting that was added at the request of the committee a week or so ago. The first page of that indicates the results of a survey that was conducted that involved a significant group of students and staff that indicated that the two top areas of interest were in health and medicine and in engineering and technology. That's very consistent with all the information that we have collected on growth trends in the job market and areas that have great potential for the future for job expansion. And there's a brief description of how these areas were explained to the participants so that they would know what the choices were in front of them. We also presented at that time a list of the steps that could be taken once we had identified a theme, which would be to identify potential community partners and resources within that theme, in this case the healthcare field, to complete an evaluation of the Torrington High School program of studies to see what courses are already currently in place that could map into what are called career pathway maps that, as we mentioned earlier with the success plans, plan out the series of courses that students would need to take in order to be able to meet their objectives to be college or career ready. We've also had an opportunity to look at existing health technologies curricula, including the ones from the Connecticut Technical High School system that are already in place, and also at 5 other public high schools across the state of Connecticut that offer a similar program. We have had an opportunity to take a look at the different certification exams that exist in this field so that students who complete this program would have an actual credential when they're done, whether it's a certified nursing assistant certificate or the NOCTI, which is a national organization certificate, which is the same one that's issued at the Connecticut Technical High Schools. We would have to determine what kind of staffing model we would need to put in place, and at the second meeting, we discussed the difference in cost between having the instructor be a member of the Torrington Public School staff versus somebody who would be hired in as a consultant basis. And we do have a precedent for that model with our emergency medical technician program that's already in place at the high school. And then also to determine if there would be facility enhancements that would be needed in terms of having to modify or renovate rooms to accommodate a specific program. The research that's been done has indicated that that's probably not really necessary, but actually what has taken a larger amount of time in the next steps for this process has been to get an accurate determination of the startup costs for the supplies of both the durable and consumable items. And I should have information for the next school improvement committee meeting that has really drilled down to a much more specific and much more accurate assessment that has lowered the cost from the original figure that was presented to about 1/3 of what it was, using a different instructional model, using a consultant model, which would be paying just for a consultant to come in and deliver the services as we do with emergency medical technician, rather than having the person be a Torrington Public Schools employee. That also reduces the cost of benefits for that individual. Looking at some economies that could be achieved with transportation by combining the clinical experience transportation runs with the existing schedule that's already in place for the kindergarten, not that they would be riding the same buses, but that it would be within the same time frame, so that would realize some cost savings. And then actually getting an item-by-item estimate of what each of the durable items would cost and the consumable items, and coming in at a much more realistic line item, so that the estimated cost, rather than being sort of the $300,000 ballpark, is closer to about a $90,000 ballpark. So that information will be shared out with committee members for their examination when we meet next time.
And when we talk about a consultant model, we don't mean somebody coming from far and wide or a high, be somebody who's like a professional in the field who would be hired for 2 hours a day.
Still needs to meet the credentials for licensing.
Right.
So
Not necessarily certified.
So that's an update.
Yep, thank you. This has been coming through school improvement now for almost a year. working on the concept of trying to do something like a small learning community. The next meeting, this still has to be workshopped by the school improvement committee at least one more time, and then clearly it's going to have to go to budget and possibly policy. So it's a long way from being, well, I shouldn't say a long way, but it's still in the formative stage. And two things, Mr. Chairman. One, in reporting this out, for the press who's here, reporting this out on these kinds of initiatives that the board is entertaining, I would just please ask reporters to be very careful when they report this about what are one-time only startup costs versus the ongoing maintenance costs for a program. And they're very different things, and we just don't want the public to get confused about that in their consideration of whether this is a good idea or a bad idea. And the whole point of this has come from many, many, many boards. Virtually every board member has put this out as something that the board needed to address, was in some sense redesigning a curriculum that addressed the needs of those kids who did not necessarily want to go on to a 4-year postgraduate university experience, and wanted to hopefully find something that was more short-term, career-oriented, and this was the one that I think the administration called this, quite frankly, it's true, the low-hanging fruit. This is the one that best suited what we had available in terms of resources now and manageable startup costs. That's number one. Number two, this subcommittee, and I know this chairman and this board, I know we're all very, very, very sensitive about budgetary costs, and we are factoring that into every single meeting in our discussions about how we are going to pay for this. And we are looking at it, at least at the subcommittee level, certainly as a zero-sum game, that where we would have to pay out to implement a curriculum such as this, we may have to find, we would then try to balance that out with savings in other areas, and essentially reforming curriculum to what we think are more, I don't know, meet the needs of students today.
Well, I think it's important, it was important for me when we had our representatives and legislators here to get a firm grasp on the fact that the state no longer considers the technical schools system to be the workhorse to put out a workforce for Connecticut, that they view that as a stepping stone for furthering their education. Whereas I know for myself personally was under the impression for a long time that if you went to one of the state technical schools, you were being taught a trade and you were going to become a tradesman upon graduation. With them having, I think it was a 68% population that's going on to college, and they expressed that shift happened 4 or 5 years ago, that they're going more in that direction and they're expecting us to go more in the trade direction. That this is a necessary, we're not necessarily looking at a dropout reduction here, as we are looking at, we need to offer courses that the kids in Torrington need. We need to be mindful of, we did a survey, the overwhelming one was health and medicine, that we need to provide a technical-based program for the kids that aren't going on. I mean, we thought, or at least I thought, that that was a technical school aspect, but as we were educated back in August, that's considered to be our responsibility. So, I think that this is a great step for going on.
I also think the ability to offer courses like this, we're looking whether it's entry or it's a student who's going on for a 4-year degree in a medical related. If they could graduate high school with a CNA certification, the student who has that can then go into an entry job, if that's what they need, and then earn the money if they want to continue, or even the business will continue, to support them to further their education. Or it can be somebody who was going into pre-med and has had a big jump on what it's like to work in the medical field. So I think we're not just serving those who will enter the workforce post.
I agree, yeah. Yeah.
I'm just curious as to how the survey was conducted.
The survey was conducted for students through their homeroom advisory period, and I believe it was a paper and pencil survey just in order to process it through quickly. The staff information was collected with a captive audience at a faculty meeting after school. The survey was available to parents on the back-to-school night, and that is part of the reason that there's such a small number. It was in terms of who the administration could catch and who was willing to complete the survey on that evening.
I mean, I guess this is where my concern is. If we're looking at doing something as, large scale as this, the community has to get behind this. We have to make sure that we're involving all the stakeholders. We put the parent alert system in. How come we're not using that system to distribute surveys to parents? I mean, parents don't know if they're not here, that they should be here to take a survey. It just seems like we have the ability to get this information to parents, and we have an obligation to get it to them.
Well, the point with the emergency system initially was just that it's an emergency calling system. In the past, we didn't want to flood the telephones with other things besides emergencies, because when we actually do have an emergency, it was thought that possibly parents wouldn't pay as much attention because it's an informational message instead of an emergency.
But then
That's been the thought.
school that also has all the email addresses. I mean, it just seems to me like to get 23 parents on a survey with a student body of 1,200 kids is not an appropriate reflection of what the parental body. I just think it's something that we need to consider at the beginning of this process, not at the end.
Well, we did, and I would like to see more, I'd like to see a bigger database too, if we could find a better way of doing that before we finally, as soon as possible, that would be good. I think one thing that stands out from this survey, even though there, again, if you're looking at really a small number of parents, quite a few students, a small number of parents, what sticks out to me, and this gets, and I just wanted to bring it back again, just like the clumsy way of doing it, but the science and technology piece. You saw 31%, which is only 7 parents, but even so, 31%, a big chunk of them really identified engineering technology. And to me that says, parents, not students, parents who think about what's in the best interest of their kids. They read the papers, they read the news, they hear the news. They know that these are the fields that are going to be in demand by the time their kids get out to the workforce, and so they're jumping on this. And again, we didn't move forward on this first. The idea was that we were going to really try and take a two-track approach here. One would be this, I don't know if you'd call it, it's not alternative curriculum, but it's whatever we're going to call this. One was to be the health and medicine career path. The other was the STEM one, engineering and technology. Both of these would then interact with and run, and completely, totally be interfaced with our regular core curriculum. And everything I've read, everything I've seen in the news, everybody's trying to hammer away at the same set of problems. What does the current modern curriculum for public high school look like, or public school system? They're all saying the same things, everything I'm saying. There was something on 60 Minutes this time, a very extensive one, Core curriculum stuff is still, core curriculum stuff for everything now is mandatory, for these specialized skills, And so we have to proceed with that, which means we still have to have the really good math and science and history and English teachers, just like we do. And then running along parallel, talking to each other would be, this health and medicine, and it's not just nursing and bedpans. We're talking about the kinds of, technical skills that are required to monitor and maintain and utilize the machinery of healthcare these days. High-paying jobs, that kind of stuff, which requires math and science, all that stuff. Also, though, with the science and technology piece, which, again, we were talking about doing this as at least a 2-year roll-up, the first year being the low-hanging fruit. That's, we know that we have the staff in place, and we know we have immediately in Torrington, we have the kinds of, support group within the community, the hospitals and the care facilities that could, partner with us, because this becomes a key component, the partnering component. That was the easy one to get at what certainly looks like a minimal, science and technology piece is going to require more. It's going to require more work, more staffing. It gets to the robotics, more deeply. And this gets to, and I'll shut up after this, but this gets to your idea, Mr. Traub, which I am strongly in support of, which goes to the goals for this year of looking at high school, really starting to think about high school and the middle school as one school entity. I mean, you've discussed this we've talked about this a couple times, and the more I think about that, I think you're absolutely right, and now's the time to really do that and start thinking of these parallel things from a 6 through 12, as part of a 6 through 12 continuum of the school system. And it's all got to be addressed. But anyway, to get to your point, this is what was in front of us, and that health and medicine thing, the data that the administrators presented to this board about the number of schools that are doing this kind of thing, that have so many more students who want to get than they can even provide, was overwhelming. That this was, something really well worth pursuing. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, and as has been commented on publicly, yes, Oliver Wilken Tech does offer a nursing program, but again, for 21 kids. But what's happening again, I'm sorry? From 20 communities. What's happening is Oliver Wilken Tech has the ability to screen applicants and select who they want. We don't have that ability in Torrington Public Schools. We have to take everybody that comes to our door. So if the kids still want that program, but are not eligible or can't get into Oliver Wilken Tech or don't want to go to Oliver Wilken Tech, we still have an obligation to offer them an education in a field that it has a higher percentage of them getting employment, and again, at a fairly cost-effective rate to us. The engineering and technology is going to be much more expensive. We do realize that Oliver Wilken Tech has a program. We're not trying to steal their program. We're trying to offer a program to the kids that are not at Oliver Wilken